Chairman, thank you very much. For the gentleman from the Springfield Chamber. Does the state chamber support this $6.2 billion borrowing package?
The state chamber has not taken a position on this yet.
So as of yet, they do not concur with your support. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say that they have not taken a position yet.
If they haven't taken one, that means they're not currently for it. Is that correct?
I guess so.
Okay. Now, Senator Sullivan, or maybe this may be for GOM, actually.
Did they have any other questions of Eric? Okay, thanks, Eric. You could stay close by.
Crushed. Thank you. How much will need to be transferred in fiscal year 12? I am told it's about $900 million will need to be transferred in fiscal year 12.
Yeah.
Is that, if we do this full $6.2 billion borrowing, is that correct?
That's correct, 876 million.
Thank you. Now, is that $876 million in either, has that been set up anywhere in either the governor's budget, the Senate Democrat budget, or the House budget?
The governor's budget had approximately 405 million built into it when it was released earlier in the year.
Okay.
For restructuring.
Is it in the House or the Senate Democrat budget?
That I can't speak to.
So, thank you. Yeah, so where is that money going to come from in the budget?
So it's my understanding, Senator Murphy and John, you can speak to this as well, as far as the state would be setting aside a portion of the payment, the annual interest. The interest would be paid twice a year. The principal would be paid once a year. We would be setting aside a portion of that out of the general revenue fund, and would go into the Goldberry. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so we would. That's how we would set the money apart, as far as allocating, as far as determining where that revenue, a specific revenue source for that, it would come out of the general revenue fund.
Okay, but currently, and we've heard much gnashing of teeth about the depth of cuts and how difficult it has been so far to put these budgets together, and this would require going $876 million deeper, wouldn't it?
Well, as you well know, the Senate has been using a revenue number of a little over $34 billion. That's the COGFA number, the commission which you set on, the number that they have arrived at. The House, of course, is using a number of $33 billion. I'm rounding those numbers off. So we don't know yet what the final budget is going to look like. We can anticipate, we can guess, but my thoughts is probably that revenue, the budget is probably going to be closer to the House's number from all indications at this point. I know it's not a done deal. So we think there's going to be additional revenues available to make the payments.
Okay. You made reference of this as a refinancing. There is
restructuring.
A restructuring. Pardon me. I do not want to mischaracterize. I apologize. The restructuring and the cost of doing this is $804 million in interest payments over 7 years. Correct?
Correct.
Now this year, it's my understanding that prompt payment interest we have paid about $17 million. And all of fiscal year 10 was about $62 million. So if we're talking 17 million versus 800 million, how is this a better deal for taxpayers than applying floor amendment number 2, which is a spending cap, and using cash to pay down these bills and not incurring any more borrowing?
Well, I can't speak to floor amendment number 2, Senator.
Nor should you.
We wouldn't want to talk about cutting spending. I mean, it would pox upon our house.
We wouldn't want to talk about something that's not germane to this bill, but go ahead, John.
Okay. We have looked at kind of a back-of-the-envelope calculation of if we were to pay these vouchers off out of cash flow over the same period of time that we would pay them off over the bonds. That's the only point of comparison that we can come up with. The prompt payment penalty, plus there's a 9% penalty due to Cigna for late payments on the state health care plan, and a 12% due to the HMOs. And there is also significantly lower because it's a market rate of interest due on the tax refunds. We estimate that the cost of maintaining these vouchers and simply paying them off in the same pattern as these bonds is approximately $500 million. So the incremental cost of the bonds is approximately $300 million. Now, your question is going to be, what do we get for the $300 million of extra expense? We do know that vendors who are not stupid have increased the bids that they're giving to the state. If you know you're not going to get paid for 6 months, you're going to inflate the cost of your bid to help cover the cost of not being paid for that length of time.
What if you didn't assume that it was going to take 7 years otherwise to pay off the bonds? What does it do to your 300 million number? What if, if you actually applied floor amendment number 2 and we actually paid it off in about a year and a half, what would that do to that $300 million number?
Well, it would do the same thing that it would do to the total overall interest cost. It would come down, that number that I mentioned to you of 800 million. If we pay it off sooner, obviously that number is going to come down, as would the number that you're referring to.
No, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. If we paid the backlog of bills without borrowing down in 18 to 20 months because we actually implemented floor amendment number 2, a spending cap, what would that do?
Does your amendment actually cut the budget that much?
If we have a spending cap at $30 billion, you have to spend within the spending cap.
Have you laid out a budget that actually identifies where those cuts are going to come?
We put out a plan that has specific cuts in it and a piece of legislation that has a cap, which so far hasn't gotten a hearing anywhere in this building.
I call it
Senator
the blue
Murphy,
room
we're
plan
going to
because
hear
there
your
is no
amendment.
budget. There is no, show us, file the amendments. We'd love to see it. I'm sure this
It's not
committee
real
will bring it up.
encouraging when I can't even get the spending cap bill called.
Your amendment's going to be called tonight, Senator.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yep, well, I'd like the last one answered, I guess.
Sorry, I got lost in the exchange. Could you repeat it, please?
What if, assume for a second, then rather than borrow, we implemented a $30 billion spending cap, paid the backlog of bills in 18 to 20 months, what would that do to the cost differential between the $804 million borrowing and our other costs for carrying the debt such as it is for a shorter period of time? Because clearly it would be significantly different from the $300 million, correct?
You're asking a hypothetical question. The mathematical answer, of course, is yes, it would be less. I can't calculate it sitting here right now, but it would be less.
Now, one other area, this is a 7-year repayment schedule, is that correct?
Yes.
At about $1 billion a year in payment, is that the estimate? That goes 3 years beyond when the temporary tax increase is supposed to drop back down, and we're going to have $1 billion just for this one borrowing, in addition to the $1 out of every 11 we're going to spend this year that goes to paying back bonds. For the first 3 years after the tax increase that you had promised would go down, is supposed to go down, this package would add $1 billion onto our payments. So are we at a point now where you're prepared to acknowledge that that tax increase isn't temporary?
Absolutely not. As you well know, the part of the tax increase expires in 4 years. There's a portion of it that doesn't expire at all. That's 1/4%. And then there's another portion of it that's 0.5% that actually continues for 14 years. So there will be the additional revenue from that to help make these debt payments.
But if we've got $1 billion additional payment we need to make for this borrowing at that time, doesn't that make it $1 billion less likely that the tax increase drop that's supposed to occur is in fact going to occur?
Senator, as you well know, we're in the process of identifying between $1 and $2 billion in cuts this year. We're going to have some other very difficult decisions to make in this budget as we move forward. We're going to have to make additional cuts, and as you said, they're not going to be easy.
But I mean, we're talking about 33.5, 33.6 in spending in FY11, and we're at the best case scenario 33.2.
If you use the House's number.
No, fiscal year 11 spending is about 33.5 billion,
Okay.
and we're basically at the same amount of spending in FY12, regardless of which plan we're talking about. Actually, the Senate Democrat plan was significantly above that. So I don't know that we're
That's
necessarily
because our
looking at a substantial cut in spending, are we?
That's because our revenue numbers were substantially above what the House's plan was as well, and we've already had that discussion.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Senator Ryder, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Sullivan, as we sit here, you've not identified the money to make the $800 million payment that has been testified about in either budget, can you?
Identified it.
Yeah, identify it. Say, here's the room right here.
The debt payment comes out of general revenue fund.
Okay, but where in either the budget that you were part of crafting or it's coming from the House is that space? That's what I'm at. I mean, if it's there, if you don't know, but you think it may be there, then go ahead and say that.
And
I'm
again,
just saying, as we sit here, do we have it?
We have not passed a budget yet, so no, we haven't identified it. That's in the process. We're in the process of negotiating a budget right now. We know what the House's revenue number is. We know what the Senate revenues number is, and we're going to when we ultimately pass a budget, the revenues for this payment is going to have to come out of that budget.
You've talked about revenue numbers, and you've talked a couple, 3 times now about the difference in the revenue numbers, which you're kind of walking me down a path that, okay, the way we're going to do this, Senator Ryder, is that we're going to adopt a higher revenue estimate, or someone's going to adopt a higher revenue estimate, and that's where we're going to find the money. Are you intentionally taking me down that path, or am I just listening to something I shouldn't be listening to?
I'm not taking you down that path intentionally. We haven't passed the budget. We don't know what that revenue number is going to be, but I am anticipating that number is going to be closer to the House's number than COGFA's number that we used here in the Senate, and that there will actually be additional revenue. I'm putting more faith in COGFA's numbers than perhaps the House is, and that there will be additional revenues available because of the growth in the economy in the coming years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Brady.
If you're for amendments passed, Senator, or to the department, what does this take Illinois' bonded debt up to?
Approximately $33 billion.
33 billion?
Yes.
And if you add in the unfunded pension liabilities, what do you believe our total debt obligations are?
If you added in everything, about 130 billion.
130.
That includes everything, and
Do you know how that compares per capita to other states?
it's a little bit higher than other states, but significantly lower than probably most other countries, including the United States of America.
Okay. So Iraq, Iran, Greece, all these other countries.
The UK,
Let me ask you,
France.
you said earlier that it is a little bit higher than other states?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I believe it's dramatically higher per capita than almost any other state in the nation. Is it not?
It is higher than most of the other states. I don't have the number at the top of my head, so I can't answer the questions.
What burden will this $30 billion put on general revenues on an annualized basis for the next 7 years?
Well, did you say 30 billion?
The $30 billion that you indicated, that $33 billion, excuse me, I didn't mean to miss 3.
The debt service,
On the $33 billion, which includes this, well, how much will that be each year for the next 7 years?
it's $3 billion each year for the next 7 years.
Flat?
Well, it has a little variation, but a variation is in the hundreds of millions, not billions. So
And-
$3 billion,
And what percent of general revenue do you estimate that to be?
under 9%.
So nearly 10%.
No, I said under 9%.
I know, but nearly 10%.
No, I said under 9%.
Yeah, but nearly 10% of our
Less than
general
9%.
revenue funds, because of this financial catastrophe, will go toward, under this plan, I just want to get the numbers right. You know, what we're obligating people to, the state of Illinois to, is $33 billion in debt, over $130 billion in unfunded liabilities, debt included, and 10% of our general revenue fund will have to go to service just the $33 billion, not to mention the unfunded.
Senator Brady, we're obligated for these bills, these past due bills. All we're trying to do is
Yeah, there's 2 ways to
restructure
pay
them.
them, Senator. One is to reduce spending and pay them out of general revenue, or to borrow
We're
and
still waiting on your
incur-
budget to do
incur-
that.
incur
Let's
further
see
obligations.
your budget.
I'm just trying to get
we're
the-
waiting on that budget.
Senator, I'm just trying to get the facts in mind. I know we owe this money, and it's very, very difficult on a lot of people. How much do you estimate that the total $130 billion will cost us over the next 7 years to service?
I can't estimate that, Senator.
But isn't that part of
because-
the whole financial package?
Well, but, look, the pension funds are not part of this discussion. They are out there, they were there before, they will be here after we have this discussion on these bills. And to bring them in and say, well, what's that gonna cost? I mean, Senator,
well,
you know
maybe-
as well as we do
Yeah.
what the contributions are.
I'm just trying to get a picture of how much money with this borrowing added on. Maybe the budget director would like to tell us how much we're going to have to spend a year for the unfunded pension liabilities, since you don't know, he's behind you. Director, would you share with us what you think that is?
Mr. Sincham, maybe you could answer a different question before you step down, because it might get to the bottom of this. If we don't pass this bill, if we don't restructure the debt, is our overall debt profile changed at all, or is it just a question of who we owe?
It's just a question of who we owe and the form of the debt.
So
But the
doing this
overall
does
debt
not
doesn't
increase our outstanding debt $1.
change. No, sir.
It simply changes it from people who never intended to loan it to us
Correct.
to people who actually would like to loan it to us.
Correct.
Does that answer your question, Senator Brady?
No, it doesn't, because I'm not just looking at the current picture. I'm looking at what the cost to the taxpayers of Illinois are going to be to fund this entire financial cost.
Senator, we're here on this bill. We're here on these amendments.
But if
you'd
you're
like to ask
if you're
about the
asking us
cost
to
of this-
support
these
$7
amendments.
billion in borrowing, the repayment of that factors into the overall budget picture, and coupled with the other obligations we have, I think it's important to know if they don't have an answer, I guess I don't understand that, but I don't know why the budget director couldn't simply say how much it's going to cost us per year in addition to this.
I think that they've answered your question as to
to-
how much
to
it's
meet
going
the
to cost to
obligation.
serve the debt that's in the amendments before us and to serve the overall bonded debt of the state. I think you're getting a little far afield of the legislation in front of us.